sir. We've done what you told us. We brought you the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. We melted her.
Oh, you liquidated her, eh? Very resourceful.
Yes, sir. So we'd like you to keep your promise to us, if you please, sir.
Not so fast. Not so fast. I'll have to give the matter a little thought. Go away and come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, but I want to go home now.
You've had plenty of time already.
Yeah. Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now.
Oh.
The great Oz has spoken.
Oh.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You are? I don't believe you.
No, I'm afraid it's true. There's no other wizard except me. You humbug! Yes, it's exactly so. I'm a humbug.
Oh, you're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear. I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard.
Okay, good evening, and we have this special session this evening. I am your teacher for the evening, Alonzo Richard Fleming Jr., and I want to thank everybody that's joining me for this season of spiritual enlightenment this evening. I'm doing a program or a lecture on self-concept versus self. Self-concept versus the self. And the subtitle is Let My People Go. So if you might want to get a pencil or a pen or your notebook or whatever writing utility that you have out for this lesson, because we're going to give you a lot of information. I want you to take notes and be able to come back and take a look at this. So self-concept versus the self. And what I want to start off with helping you to actually see from the beginning what we're talking about. From the beginning. The self-concept, just in general, and I'm going to go into it deeper, but the self-concept is an image that we make of ourselves. It's an image that we make of ourselves, and we're going to go through this and show you how we develop coming from the self-concept to the self. And the self is what your creator created. And there's a process of coming from or evolving from the self-concept to the realization of the self. And that's what we're going to go through with this. So I'm going to use as our starting verses, I'm going to read out of both the Bible and the Course in Miracles to kind of help you to develop this. And I want to just say from the outset that the universe or God does not send a foreigner to help develop a people from the initial stages. In terms of talking to that people about who they are, it's the same with an individual. The universe does not go to someone else initially and speak to that person about you. It comes to you, or God comes to you and deal with you about you. And so this is somewhat difficult to understand because we get books and we get these books. They tell us a lot of things. You know, we read self-help books and spiritual books, and these books seem to be talking about us, talking to us. But I want to say that if the book does not point you to yourself, then the book is not talking to you from a standpoint of your creator. It is not in harmony with reminding you of who your creator is. And so each book should speak to you about you, to look inward and discover yourself as you were created. And so this self concept versus self is talking about the self that we have made or tried to make versus reality, the true self, the self that was given to us by our creator. And as I said, a foreigner, be it an individual or be it a people, a nation or a group of people, does not come to that people to tell that people about themselves. The God sends an internal witness to declare to you, or raise up, in the sense of a people, raise up someone or some others from among you who have been in the same situation, have gone through what you have gone through, and are able to completely identify with you. The God sends, or raise up, I should say. He don't send them, he raised them up from among the people. This is true about the United States. If you read the Declaration of Independence, it was the colonists who were among the people, the smart ones, the learned ones from among the people of this nation, that penned the Declaration of Independence. And listen to this. They talk about a people. And I know all the things that are said about this. Just go with me on it to try to see past the particulars in terms of what the individuals were in their own conduct versus the principles which underpin the Declaration of Independence and the resulting Constitution. It says here that when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary one people, and he's talking about a group, to dissolve the political bonds or bands which have connected them with another people, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station. Now listen to this, to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. And then it goes on to say, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires them that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And here is the part that everyone knows, but have you really thought about it? We hold these truths to be self-evident. Do you hear that? We hold these truths to be self-evident. The truth that they're about to talk about is a truth that is internal. It is the evidence for this truth that we're about to mention in the Declaration of Independence. The evidence for it is the self-evident. We hold these self-evident truths, and what are they? That all men, and that includes females, women, they may not have thought about it in those terms, but we're going to deal with it in what we understand here. The principles is what I'm trying to get you to see past the simple words and the symbols and grasp the principle. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator. They're talking about everybody. It doesn't matter where they are, who they are, what they are. All men. And they're holding this as a truth, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their creator. It is their creator that endows them with certain unalienable rights. And that among these unalienable rights, now, if you don't know what the word unalienable means, it means that you can't be alienated from these rights. And that there are certain rights, meaning that they are sure, that you got from your creator. These certain sure rights that you got from your creator are unalienable, meaning that you did not get them from someone other than your creator, nor can they be taken away from you by someone other than your creator. And since they are unalienable, there is no one, including your creator, that can take these rights from you. And that among these rights, you see, there are many rights that you have. Do you know that there is a universal declaration of human rights that you have never heard of? You've never heard of the Declaration of Universal Rights for humans. But going back to this, that among these certain inalienable rights, when you talk about among them, it's talking about you have a number of rights, and that among these number of rights that you have, we're going to tell you about three of them. And those three are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you have life as unalienable, but you won't understand what that means if you don't look to where the life is. You have liberty and it's unalienable, but you won't be able to exercise or function in that liberty until you're able to look where they are. And as we said before, they are self-evident. And then the pursuit of happiness, if you don't understand the process of what happiness is and how to experience happiness, because you don't know where to look for it, then you will think that they are alienable, that these rights can be taken from you by somebody and given to you by somebody. But it says here that they are unalienable, and we're looking at the self here in the Declaration of Independence, because the self is not a concept. The self is a reality. Who you are is a reality. And a reality cannot be changed. Reality cannot be made unreal. Neither can the unreal be made real or reality. And these rights in the Declaration of Independence, which came from the colonists, their own being, a sense of their own being, is what set the stage for what we have now as the United States. But see, they didn't talk about a concept, they talked about the self. And so when the God raises up someone among you, they don't speak in terms of self-concept unless they're just talking about it to tell you that that's not who you really are. And all you have to do to understand that that's not who you really are is to simply look where reality is, and that is within. You are real. So now, if you go to the Bible, we first going just the last point on the Declaration. The Declaration of Independence spoke in terms of a people. It starts out by talking about when, during the course of events, it is necessary for one people to separate from another people because of certain things going on. They talked about a decent respect for the opinions of man, impel them to set forth the reasons why we must take this action. So you saw in the Declaration of Independence, they came from among the people to the people. We're going to deal with Moses a little bit here. If you read the book of Exodus in the Bible, you notice that Moses came from among the people to people. He was one of them. God don't send foreigners to you. If you look at Jesus in the New Testament, you will notice that he came from among his people to his people. The Bible says that he's going to save his people from their sin. He came from among them to them. He understood the dynamics of what was going on, just like Moses understood the dynamics of Hebrews in slavery under Egypt. Jesus, these stories, and you can check it out. There is no evidence for this story in Moses, but it's a good model to help you to understand a principle about how a people are truly reformed. So Moses came from his people to his people. Jesus came from his people to his people. Jesus did not come to you. Jesus came to his people of 2,000 years ago using the same principle that Moses used when he came to his people several thousand years before that. The principles are real and they can't be made unreal. So the principles go through time and space. And as the God raised up one for you, he raises that one up for you from you. So Jesus came to his people. and talk to his people about their sin. Muhammad of the Muslims came to his people. They were doing all kind of uncivilized things. I believe they were saying they were burying their girls and all kind of things, sacrificing to the gods. And one named Muhammad came to his people about his people from among his people. And so do you see so far how this principle goes through time? And that the principle is that the God raises up a individual or individuals from among the people that they are meant to serve. And so in America, the United States, under our situation, we needed someone to be raised up that understood the dynamics of this people, which have been enslaved for 450 years. So Marcus Garvey rose up and he said, "Up, you mighty people, you can accomplish what you will." And then after he went off the scene, you had Noble Drew Ali, you had Harriet Tubman, you had people who were raised up from among us, understood us, talked about us. And so we have Elijah Muhammad, this American black Muslim with a 4th grade education, raised up and spoke to our grandparents and our great grandparents. And he laid out certain principles, which I'm going to get into. So when you understand the time and when you have an idea of the process, you have an idea of what must be done in the time you are in. You see, you can be doing something right, brothers and sisters, but you might be doing it right for another time. The time for that thinking may have passed you. So when you know either the time you are in or the place you are in, you can use that knowledge to know what to think or what to do. This is true for individuals, and it's true for families, and it's true for groups of people, and it's true for nations. God does not raise up ignorant ones to bring about the change that a nation of people need. Even in America, as you see the decline of the country, and I know what they're saying. They saying, no, America is not in decline. One side is saying, yes, it is. And the other side is saying, no, it's not. But nothing or no one get to escape the process as long as we are in time. We have to learn to elevate out of time in order to see certain things. But when you either know the time you are in or the place you are in, you can use that knowledge to know what to think or what to do. And as I said, this is true for individuals. It's true for families. It's true for groups of people. And it's true for nations. There is an individual mind that you have. There is a mind that a family has, a mental orientation that a family has. mental orientation that a group of people have, a mental orientation of a nation, what it has. So when you tap into that, you know what to think or what to do, assuming you knew the time or the place you are in. So why am I going to use the story of Moses to begin to illustrate this self-concept versus self? It makes for a good story. It makes for a good model of what can happen to an individual or race or group of people when what they were created to be has been hidden from them, though it's right inside of them. You see, that's how it flows. When you are up under an oppressive situation, who you really are, the first thing that has to happen is that the real you have to be hidden from you, and a false you or a concept of yourself has to be given to you. And once the concept of yourself has been given to you and you take on that thinking, and you think that the concept that has been given to you is your own, you never bother to look within yourself and discover the self that you know is there, but you don't believe that that's you. You believe that the concept is you. And the concept continually delivers to you things that you know are unsatisfactory. But because you don't trust the real self, because the concept of the self tells you that, no, that's not really you. I am what you are. That's the concept. We're going to talk about the real you. So 450 years in the story of Moses in the Bible, these Hebrews were under slavery, under a slave environment. And if you read the story, you will see that the Pharaoh, having looked out, you know, Egypt was the big dog on the block during those days. It was the great power. It was the biggest dog. It was the world power. It controlled the economics of the planet, the religion of the planet, of the known world, the culture of the known world. This is there for you to illustrate what's going on in your condition, in your situation. And so the Pharaoh knowing what he and his people were doing to the Hebrews, looked among them and did the math. And it says that they were a great people and many more than the Egyptians were. But do you think the Pharaoh told the Hebrews that they were more and that they were mightier than the Egyptians? Do you think that the Pharaoh told them that? No, the Bible says the Pharaoh said to his people, let us deal wisely with them, lest when an enemy attacks us or we go to war, they will rise up against us alongside the enemy because how we have treated them. And so you think, let me put it some meat on the bone. You think that during the Civil War and during World War I and then reluctantly during World War II, they had an issue with arming black men? You think that they told you that the reason we are reluctant is because we don't know if y'all can fight as good as us. But the real reason they were reluctant to arm you during the Civil War, the World War I, World War II, and all the other wars is because they were not sure in which directions your men would point the rifle. And it was only after they were sure what direction the men would point the rifle that they let you fight. And even then, they did not trust you, because they had to have black regiments, and you thinking they just don't want to be among you. But they had to have the black regiments and black companies in order to keep an eye on you. If you mix in with everybody else, then you can sabotage the whole thing. See, you don't think strategically. You think that everybody thinks like a slave. So at first they had black regiments, but that was so that they could keep an eye on you and have you in one place. And it was only after they were absolutely sure that you would never point the gun in the other direction that you were able to fight and become generals and secretaries of state and things of that nature. And so great care in the story of Moses in Egypt. The Pharaoh said his people, he did not tell the Hebrews this. It says his people, let us deal wisely with them, lest when a war breaks out, they turn against us. So we got to deal wisely with them. We have to make sure that we destroy the males and save the girls. Why would he do that? You got to think. You read this Bible, but you ain't thinking. You're not thinking. Why would he deal wisely, save the women, destroy the males? Because they needed a population for economic growth and work. And they could not afford to have a lot of rebellion, because a man that's ain't too long gonna go for it. A man that's thinking is not going to sell his soul for it. And so they gave the slaves in Egypt, they first put taskmasters over the whole Hebrew population. And then the taskmasters chose Hebrews, the ones that deal with them. They were your go-between. They were your civil rights leaders. They were the ones that was the go-between the taskmasters and the children of Israel. You see. And so when Moses came along, well, they first of all had to infuse Egyptian culture, but they always made themselves superior. They had to give the Hebrews the Egyptian language. Do you think that they allowed the Hebrews to speak their own language? Do you really think that? Do you think that they allowed the Hebrews to practice their own culture under slavery? Do you think that they allowed the Hebrews to practice their own politics? Do you think that they allowed the Hebrews to educate their own children with a curriculum that the Hebrews devised out of their own souls? When they funded the Hebrews on projects, do you really think that they let the Hebrews plan, plot, put together their own project free of the encumbrances of Egypt? Do you think they allowed them to form an economic system that served them? Nothing that the Egyptians gave to the Hebrews was designed to bring out the best of the Hebrews. It was always designed to make them better servants under the entire culture of the Egyptians. And do you think that the Egyptians gave the Hebrews a religion and a concept of God that would serve the Hebrews? Do you think that? Do you think that a man who won't treat you right is going to teach you right? Do you think that we're going to go through the story and you're going to see it's right in your Bible what I'm going to say? When I read this stuff, you're going to see it. You probably read it all your life. You watched the 10 Commandments every Easter, but never really thought about it. They're not going to give you a God that will serve you. They're going to give you a God that you must serve. And the God that you must serve is the God of the Egyptians. Do you really think that somebody's going to give you a God that's going to free you from them? You really think that? Do you really think that? We're going to go on. The enslaver's thinking does not give you anything that you can use to aid in your own sense of self and your sense of your connection with your Creator. They always give you a sense of something outside of yourself that you have to get. But we read from the Declaration of Independence, it says that we hold these truths to be self-evident. So why do you have to march for a vote? Why are you the only one that have to protect your vote? Because your vote is not of you. It's not something that's inalienable to you. Why do you have to march to keep them from killing you, miseducating you, double dealing with you? Because everything that you have been given is outside of you. Why do you have to die to get heaven? Why you got to get streets of gold in the by and by? And then you notice when the preacher is sick, he run into the hospital because he don't want to go get them streets of gold. He want to stay right here as long as you do. Though he preaches to you about streets of gold and pearly gates. But you know he keeps his butt right here as long as he possibly can, just like you do. You've been had, you've been took, you've been bamboozled. So going back to this story, the enslaver's thinking does not give you anything. And I don't care how long you pass it on through generations, just like they did in Egypt. It does not change. It is the same thing that your great, 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 great grandfather had. Passed on to you. And you think that the God of Egypt is the God of your fathers. So in the present story found in Egypt, as I said, the king realized that the slave population was more and mightier, and he had to keep the slave population ignorant, but make them think that they were functioning with knowledge. And you know when you function with knowledge because you see the results. It manifests. Whatever you functioning in manifests. So he had to steep them in superstition, and he had to keep them steeped in fables. I showed you the Wizard of Oz clip at the beginning of the program. And it was when they had come to the wizard, they had killed the wicked witch of the west, like the wizard had demanded. He said, if you kill the wicked witch of the west, I'm going to give the lion a heart. I'm going to give the scarecrow a brain. I'm going to give the tin man or the lion courage. I'm going to give the scarecrow a brain. I'm going to give the tin man a heart. And I'm going to let you go home. I'm going to show you the way home, Dorothy. But all these things were already inside of them. But because they did not know, they did what the wizard did, which was kill someone on behalf of the wizard to get those things. Let us deal wisely with them. So when they killed the wicked witch of the west and came to the wizard, I know it's a story, but so is the story of Moses, a fable. But it's a good story to help you to understand this. If you don't believe me, ask your preacher to give you a time when this situation of Moses happened. When did it happen in history? He won't be able to give you a definite time. But it makes for a good model. So when they killed the wicked witch of the west and brought the broom to the wizard, he put them off. He knew he couldn't give them a heart. He knew he couldn't give them a brain. He knew he could. See, he understood inalienable rights. They didn't. And it was only after the dog went through that Toto, I believe his name was, and pulled the curtain back that they were able to see that this ferocious looking wizard was just a mere old man pulling strings and talking crazy. So when Moses in the book of Exodus, Moses grew up in the king's house as a result of the Pharaoh saying, listen, we got to depopulate them a little bit. So we want to command these women, these Hebrew women, to throw their sons in the water or kill their sons. And many of the women did it. Many of the women did it. Don't you be fooled. Many of the women killed their sons. But there were enough women who did not kill their children. You better listen to me. You better listen to me, black woman, because you are at a place in history for such a time as this. But because you may not know what time it is, you may be conducting yourself in certain ways that give us indication that you are unaware of the time and what must be done. But I'm here to share with you. And so Moses' mother put him in the lake in a basket. As the story goes, he floats down the river. The king's daughter, or the Pharaoh's daughter, found him, and Moses grew up in the house of Pharaoh. Do you see this? Moses grew up and became one of the leading people in Pharaoh's house. And Moses understood warfare because they taught him this. He knew how to read and write because they taught him this. He understood the gods of the Egyptians and how they played a part on behalf of the Egyptians and against the Hebrews because he was taught this. So when Moses went out among his people, because some reason he kept identifying with the Hebrews, he began to make an assessment of the Hebrews out in the fields and began to identify with himself as a Hebrew. And I won't go through all the story, but as the story goes, he killed one of the Egyptians and he was found out. And so he had to flee Egypt as a result of that. And he spent another 12 years in the desert. And while this was going on, he met God. Listen, he met God. See, but you and I have been given God in the terms of fables. So this burning bush story and this take your shoes off your feet because you are standing on holy ground, we look at it as fables, a bush burning but not being consumed. We look at that as a fable in terms of this was really going on like this. But these are symbols that help us to understand certain other things. So when the time came, the interpretation of it would be given to certain ones and they would be able to help you to understand what was really going on in that situation. But anyway, this God came to Moses and began to speak to him. And you think it was a spirit. You think it was, I understand. I was taught the same thing. It was another man. He introduced himself as the God of your fathers. See, he told Moses that I'm going to free your people from this situation. And Moses say, so I want you to gather the elders up and I want you to tell the elders, give the elders instructions. And Moses said, well, wait a minute, who am I going to tell you? To whom am I going to tell them you are? He said, I am the God of your fathers. Now, wait a minute. The Hebrews were worshiping a God. They had the gods that the Egyptians had given to them. Why didn't the God that was speaking to Moses say, I'm the God that they gave you? No, he said, I am the God of your fathers, telling you that your fathers knew who I am. I am the God of your fathers. Because the people did not know. They wouldn't know I am. See, because they had the gods of Egypt. They had the denominations of Egypt. So they would not know who this God was that was talking to Moses. And they was certainly not going to put this God, their gods down. They believed with all their heart in the gods of Egyptians. They was not going to put or surrender the God that had been given to them by the Egyptians for this God that Moses was talking about. They are going to preach even harder. He's coming again. The God of the Egyptians got you thinking, all I got to do is take this butt kicking a little longer, because sooner or later he's going to crack the sky and rescue me from them. But the God of their fathers, when he came to Moses, he introduced himself. He told Moses to go tell the elders to give instructions to the rest of the people. And Moses said, well, who are you? I'm the God of your fathers. And so he gave Moses more instructions. He gave Moses the instructions because the time was such that the culture of Egypt had degenerated so much, so low, so criminal, so debased that it had to collapse on itself. And so the God of Moses, knowing the time, was able to say, I'm bringing this down on Egypt. He only knew the time and what had to happen. And so he gave Moses several instructions. He told Moses, okay, I want you to go teach them how to get along with each other. And so Moses saw two of them fighting, and he said to the ones, he tried to correct them. He said, who made you a judge over us? You going to kill me like you killed the Egyptians? See, they were hard-headed. They didn't want to be free. They wanted it in theory only, but not in real terms. He gave them how to repair their families. He told them to sit and eat together, and he called it Passover. This was designed to help the family bond while the preparations for liberation from the house of bondage were being made. And so this death angel passed through Egypt, and he told them, I want you to be in the house. I want you to eat with your families. I want you to pull your families back together. I want you to make blended families if necessary, or go get back with the ones that you left, or whatever the situation is. I want you to become, realize, see, families build quality societies, not individuals. Families do. Not independent from each other type of people build nations. Families build nations. So the God, knowing this, brought the family together. And as I said, he called the elders, but you thinking that this story took place over a couple of days, but it took place over decades. So I was thinking about that. Oh, this is going longer than I thought. I got 8 minutes here. Hold on with me. I was thinking about that. How did he get the elders together to, the Pharaoh would say something? You're not going to gather them together. Well, if you think about it for real, what happened was when Moses called the elders together, they were not elders. They were young men. And he gave them the pledge at the Million Man March. He gave them the instructions. And then when they got older and were elders, that's when the time was for the situation to occur. So the Pharaoh didn't know what was happening in 1995 on October 16th. He did not know. So he allowed it. Had he known what was going down, he would have stopped it there. But he found out later, and that's why you have this issue going on with the Nation of Islam, Farrakhan, and black youth. How is it that some representative from Israel called black youth the biggest threat to the nation of Israel? Black youth don't even know where Israel is. But what would make a representative of that government say that black youth, I wish I had the video here, I'd play it for you, is the biggest threat to Israel? You're not thinking if you don't understand what's happening to the Palestinians. And the same ones that's saying that your young people are the biggest threat to their nation is who's doing it to the Palestinian youth. You're not putting it together. You're not putting it together. You're not thinking. But I'm here to pull the sheets back. So he called the elders. These are the instructions that the God gave to Moses. He then taught them how to eat, to live. He changed their diet because the Hebrews were in bad health, because they insisted, because of the ones who the taskmasters put over the people, insisted that, I know the Egyptians are feeding us poison, but all you got to do is pray over it and it's going to be blessed. And so Elijah Muhammad wrote a 2-volume book to our grandparents saying how to eat to live and to stay away from the hog and to eat certain other kind of foods. But the taskmaster said, God of the Egyptians said you can eat anything. Don't call nothing that I have blessed defiled. You can eat anything. You just bless and be thankful for it. But the God of your father said, don't eat it. And so he changed the diet of the people. So they telling our grandfathers that it was good as long as you bless it. How's that working out? How's that working out for us? We eating everything they put before us, everything they make, everything almost is poisonous. And they steadily telling us, all you got to do is say a blessing over it. High blood pressure, heart attacks, diabetes. Obesity. How's that working out for you? We've been doing it the way the representatives of religion and culture have been telling us. We've been doing it that way. How is that working out for us, black man and woman? How's that working out? Cancer. I can't even count the number of black women with dying from breast cancer. 4 women in my own family. So we need a new way to eat, but our new way to eat is not something new. It was given to us by one who was raised up among us, from among us, and given us how to eat to live. Change the diet. You don't believe that God of Moses' fathers changed their diet? He got them in the wilderness and started feeding them manna. And it was only enough for them to eat it for that day. And they was tiring of this angel food, as they called it. He changed their diet. Told them what to eat, what not to eat. He showed them that the universe is abundant because they're out in the desert, and that you don't have to depend on the Egyptians because they're out in the desert and this angel food is coming down. It was just enough for that day that they were in. So he was showing them, no, you don't have to ask for what you need from the Egyptians. The inalienable rights are right inside you. It serves you just like it serves anybody else. God shines his sun on the just and the unjust. So you can't tell by the shining of the sun who's just and who's unjust, because the sun shines on everyone without regard to who they think they are. So he gave them a new view of themselves from the concept of themselves that they had learned in slavery. So I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. If you will give me just 5 or 6 more minutes, I want to read something to wrap this up. Self-concept versus the self. The self that we have been given is the self that has been given to us by the Egyptians in every aspect, and no institution has escaped from it. So I'm calling us to look towards the self. What the Declaration of Independence said, Jesus said it when he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said, don't look any place else for it. It is within you. And I'm here today telling you, stop looking at the concept that you made of the self and look at the self that you were created. I'm reading out of A Course in Miracles. I'm reading verses 1, 2, and 7, and I'll be wrapping it up after this. Listen to this. Self-concept versus self. The learning of the world is built upon a concept of the self adjusted to the world's reality. It fits it well. For this an image is that suits a world of shadows and illusions. Here, this concept walks at home, where what it sees is one with it, one with the world. The self-concept that's been given to you is one with the world. That includes your religion, Reverend, especially your religion. The building of a concept of the self is what the learning of the world is for. See there? The building of the concept of the self is what the learning of the world is for. The world's purpose is to build a concept of the self. This is its purpose, that as you come into the world without a self and make one as you go along, and by the time you reach maturity, you have perfected it to meet the world on equal terms, at one with its demand. A concept of the self is made by you. You're in the world and you're of the world. But it says in one place, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove to yourself that good purpose and excellent will of God. But a concept of the self is made by you. It bears no likeness to yourself at all, your true self. Your concept of yourself bears no likeness to your true self. It is an idol. So when God told them have no graven images, he meant you and the concept that you made of you. It is an idol. And what is that idol to do? That idol is made to take the place of your reality as Son of God. It's made to take the place of your reality as a child of God. Concepts are learned, they are not natural. Apart from learning, they do not exist. They are not given, so they must be made. That simply says that when you were created, God did not create you with a concept. He created you as real. You are real. You are not a concept. Concepts change because they're made by you. Without learning them, they do not exist. They are not given, so they must be made. Not one of them is true. And many come from feverish imaginations, hot with hatred and distortions, born of fear. What is a concept of the self? It is a thought to which its maker gives a meaning of his own. So the concept of the self is totally different from the self that you were created. And so when I say self-concept versus self, let my people go, I'm saying to you, take a moment to think about it and release the concept to discover your reality. See, because even in your Bible, as I said already, it tells you to love not the world, love not the things that are in the world. For any man that loved the world, the love of the Father is not in him, for the world passes away and the lust thereof. You see, well, you might say, well, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Yes, the world he made. He so loved the world he made, not your concept. He made the world he made. And as I said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't be transformed by the renewing of your body. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It is your mind and your thinking, our mind and our thinking that we got to work on, brother. let my people go.
Stone silence, said the deaf man. I didn't believe Sunday school.